Hey everyone, I just finished two books this weekend that were both set mostly in the mind of the narrators, so I thought we'll talk about those two together. One is Death in Her Hands, and the other is The Monsters We Deserve. Let's start with Death in Her Hands. This novel starts off with our narrator finding a note in the forest claiming that there's a dead body that lies there, and the person who wrote the note didn't kill the person, but there is no person. So we follow this woman trying to figure out what's going on, starting in a murder mystery. And for a long time, we don't really have much information. We only get everything told by the narrator. As it turns out, our narrator is a 72-year-old woman who recently moved there after the death of her husband. Throughout the book, we learn more and more about the relationship between her and her husband. We learn more about her, how she came to be living in this little town. It's somewhere completely than where she lived before. She got a dog and the relationship between the dog. She often talks about shared mind space, that she shared a mind space with her husband and now with the dog. And you can tell by the way that she talks that she really doesn't have anyone. The more we learn about her, the more we learn about the relationship between her and her husband, and how that also, even though it starts off being positive, the way she talks about it, the more we get to the end, you get the feeling that there were a lot of things that she wasn't happy with. And this is one part that's going on, that we learn a lot about her. Also, what happens is that she's not very likable. The more time we spend with her, the less I liked her. I really thought she wasn't a very likable person. Now, I don't know in the past, but now she came off a little bit weird and judgmental and, yeah, not likable. But it was very fascinating to see how her mind works. And then there's the mystery. She's trying to do the right thing, and it feels a little bit like she's doing something to keep her busy, and she's creating this character. She's creating a character for the dead girl, for the person she thinks wrote the note, and she starts to create a whole story around all of the events, not knowing anything for real. And she doesn't really know people in this town either, so she doesn't really know. And then throughout the book, she interacts with others, and somehow they all have the names that she has given them. And you start to realize that she is a very unreliable narrator, as you don't really know what's real and what's not real. But you also notice that the woman is starting to get confused about what's real and what's not real, what she made up and what really existed. And it is a fascinating read. It's also fascinating in the way that it makes you think about how much time you spend in your mind and how much effect that has on your perception of reality, of what you see, what you hear, and what you make of it and how you interpret it. Really enjoyed that. At times it was a little bit slow, but overall it was a very captivating read. I really like the writing of the author. I enjoyed everything she wrote so far, and I really enjoy how, no matter what kind of narrator she chooses, she manages to make it feel realistic and real and authentic. I loved it. The Monsters We Deserve plays in a different mind space. The book starts off with the narrator addressing you, and you start to notice that it's the author of the book addressing first you, but then at some point calling you the publisher. So you get confused a little bit if the author is addressing you, the reader, or the publisher, who is supposedly also the reader. And so there's an interesting mixture of you feel personally involved in the story and in the text. And the book is set in a chalet in the Alps, very lonely in the middle of a forest. And there's no one but the author. As the book progresses, you find out more and more what is going on, that the author went there to write a book, and that he's having this conversation with this publisher who wants to write him a book and do something about the book, and then his conversation with having no idea. So it's a lot about his writing progress. But then we also find out that he wants to write or destroy another book. And it takes a little while till it's set. Now I'm a little bit torn here because I think the book he wants to destroy, he talks about a lot in the ongoing process of the book. And if you haven't read that book, it's a classic book, it will be spoiled. So, but I don't want to talk about it and spoil the fun of you of discovering it. That is sometimes a little difficulty I have, that I think that a book is written in a way that you find out slowly what is going on. But sometimes in a review, you give that away. On the other hand, I think that if you haven't read the book and you don't know which book it is, then you go into this book and you will be spoiled for the book because it is addressing the story and the perception of that book. So having said that, you had enough warning to leave if you don't want to be spoiled for this book. Other than that, I'm talking about Frankenstein. So the author has, let's say, a love-hate relationship, more on the side of hate with the book. So he starts to criticize it, what he doesn't like about it, and thinks about whether he writes a book about that. And then things get weird because ghosts appear and there are mysteries and strange things and sounds, and it's a little bit eerie, and I really enjoyed that. So here we have the author also telling us a story, but also informing us about what he thinks about his writing process, about the book he has written, and about the book he wants to write, about the book that was written, Frankenstein, and about the creatures that were created and the responsibility of an author towards those creatures and the work, and also how writing a book affects the book, but also how the book affects the author, and in all of that, the relationship to the reader. And I thought that was very interesting. It was very personal, it felt at times. And since he often addressed you, you were sucked into that. You felt like part of the conversation. And that was really amazing. With all the ghosts and all the scary things going on, at sometimes you also wonder if he's losing his mind, which of course he is doing too. And I thought that was also very well done. It is very well written. I really enjoy Marcus Sedgwick's writing and his books. I flew through it in a night, mostly, which was not the best idea because it was kind of scary at that point. So there we have it. 2 books mostly centered around one character that is stuck inside their mind, making up conversations and ideas about the reality and thinking about things that happened and that will happen, and having conversations with people that are maybe not there. Who knows? I really enjoyed those reads. They were a little bit on the eerie, scary side, but not too dark. I enjoyed that. Of course, I want to know if you have read either of the books or if you have heard of them. Let me know in comments what you thought about them, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.